Hello and welcome to India Reads. We are reading the story of my experiments with truth by Mahatma Gandhi. Just to give a quick recap so that we are in line with what I would be reading from now. Gandhi here is talking about his difficulty in public speaking, the fact that he could never overcome his shyness as long as he was there in England. Even in South Africa, it was not that he was a great speaker, but he got a little bit more confidence than what he had in England. Of course, he could never speak extempore. He would start with a written speech in hand, and that's where we kind of stopped in the last video. So let's start because the topic has not been completely discussed. I must say that beyond occasionally exposing me to laughter, my constitutional shyness has been no disadvantage whatever. In fact, I can see that on the contrary, it has been all to my advantage. My hesitancy in speech, which was once an annoyance, is now a pleasure. Its greatest benefit has been that it has taught me the economy of words. I have naturally formed the habit of restraining my thoughts. I can now give myself the certificate that a thoughtless word hardly escapes my tongue or pen. I do not recollect ever having to regret anything in my speech or writing. I have thus been spared many a mishap and waste of time. Experience has taught me that silence is part of the spiritual discipline of a votary of truth. Proneness to exaggerate, to suppress or modify the truth, wittingly or unwittingly, is a natural weakness of man, and silence is necessary in order to surmount it. A man of few words would rather be thoughtless in his speech, would rarely be thoughtless in his speech. He will measure every word. We find so many people impatient to talk. There is no chairman of the meeting who is not pestered with notes for permission to speak. And whenever the permission is given, the speaker generally exceeds the time limit, asks for more time, and keeps on talking without permission. All this talking can hardly be said of any benefit to the world. It is so much a waste of time. My shyness has been in reality my shield and buckler. It has allowed me to grow. It has helped me in my discernment of truth. The canker of untruth. There were comparatively few students in England 40 years ago. It was a practice with them to attend the bachelor even though they might be married. School or college students in England are all bachelors, studies being regarded as incompatible with married life. We had that tradition in the good old days, a student being invariably known as brahmachari, but in these days we have child marriages, a thing practically unknown in England. Indian youths in England therefore feel ashamed to confess that they were married. There's also another reason for dissembling, mainly that in the event of the fact being known, it would be impossible for young men to go about or flirt with young girls of the family in which they lived. The flirting was more or less innocent, parents even encouraged it, and that sort of association between young men and women may, may be a necessity there. In view of the fact that every young man has to choose his mate, if, however, Indian youths on arrival in England indulge in these relations, quite natural to English youths, the result is likely to be disastrous, as has been found. I saw that our youths had succumbed to the temptation and chosen a life of untruth for the sake of companionships, which, however innocent in the case of English youths, were for them undesirable. I too caught that contagion. I did not hesitate to pass myself as a bachelor, even though I was married and a father of a son. But I was none the happier for being the dissembler. Only my reserve and my reticence saved me from going into deeper waters. I did not talk. No girl would think it worth her while to enter into conversation with me or go out with me. My cowardice was on par with my reserve. It was customary in families like this, like the one I was staying in Ventnor, for the daughter of the landlady to take out guests for a walk. My landlady's daughter took me one day to the lovely hills around Ventnor. I was no slow walker, but my companion walked even faster, dragging me after her and chattering all the while. I responded to her chatter sometimes with a whispered yes or no, or at the most, yes, how beautiful. She was flying like the bird whilst I was wondering when I should get back home. We thus reached the top of a hill. How to get down again was a question. In spite of her high heeled boots, this sprightly young lady of 25 darted down the hill like an arrow. I was shamefacedly struggling to get down. She stood at the foot, smiling and cheering me and offering to come and drive me. How could I be so chicken hearted? With the greatest difficulty and crawling at intervals, I somehow managed to scramble to the bottom. She loudly laughed, bravo, and shamed me all the more, as well she might. I could not escape scathless everywhere, for God wanted to rid me of the canker of untruth. Once went to Brighton, another watering place like Ventnor. This was before the Ventnor visit. I met there at a hotel an old widow of moderate means. This was my first year in England. The courses on the menu were all described in French, which I did not understand. I sat at the same table as the old lady. She saw that I was a stranger and puzzled, and immediately came to my aid. You seem to be a stranger, she said, and looked perplexed. Why are you not ordering anything? I was spelling through the menu and preparing to ascertain the ingredients of the courses from my waiter when the good lady thus intervened. I thanked her and, explaining my difficulty, told her that I was at loss to know which of the courses were vegetarian as I did not understand French. Let me help you, she said. I shall explain the card to you and show you what you may eat. I gratefully availed myself of her help. This was the beginning of an acquaintance that ripened into friendship and was kept up through my stay in England and long after. She gave me her London address and invited me to dine at her house every Sunday. On special occasions, she would also invite me, help me conquer my bashfulness, and introduce me to young ladies and draw me into conversation with them. Particularly marked out for these conversations was a young lady who stayed with her, and often we would be left entirely alone together. I found all this very trying at first. I could not start a conversation, nor could I indulge in any jokes. But she put me in a way I began to learn, and in course of time I looked forward to every Sunday and came to like the conversations with the young friend. The old lady went on spreading the net wider every day. She felt interested in our meetings. Possibly she had her own plans about us. I was in a quandary. How I wished I would told the good lady that I was married, I said to myself. She would have not thought of an engagement between us. It is, however, never too late to mend. If I declare the truth, I might yet be saved more misery. With these thoughts in mind, I wrote a letter to her somewhat to this effect. Ever since we met at Brighton, you have been kind to me. You have taken care of me even as a mother of a son. You also think that I should get married, and with that view, you've been introducing me to young ladies. Rather than allow matters to go further, I must confess to you that I've been unworthy of your affection. I should have told you when I began my visits to you that I was married. I knew that Indian students in England dissembled the fact of their marriage, and I followed suit. I now see that I should not have done so. I must also add that I was married while yet a boy, and I am a father of a son. I am pained that I should have kept this knowledge from you for so long. But I am glad that God has now given me the courage to speak out the truth. Will you forgive me? I assure you that I have taken no improper liberties with the young lady that you were good enough to introduce me to. I knew my limits. You, not knowing that I was married, naturally desired that we should be engaged. In order that the things should not go beyond the present stage, I must tell you the truth. If on receipt of this you feel that I have been unworthy of your hospitality, I assure you that I will not take it amiss. You have laid me under an everlasting debt of gratitude by your kindness and solicitude. If after this you do not reject me but continue to regard me as worthy of your hospitality, which I will spare no pains to deserve, I shall naturally be happy and count it as a further token of your kindness. Let the reader know that I could not have written such a letter in a moment. I must have drafted and redrafted it many times over, but it lifted a burden that was weighing me down. Almost by written post came her reply, somewhat as follows. I have your frank letter. We were both very glad and had a hearty laugh over it. The untruth you say you have been guilty of is pardonable, but it is well that you have acquainted us with the real state of things. My invitation still stands, and we shall expect you next Sunday and look forward to hearing all about your child marriage and to the pleasure of our laughing at your expense. Need I assure you that our friendship is not in the least affected by this incident. I thus purged myself of the canker of untruth, and I never henceforward hesitated to talk of my married state wherever necessary. Acquaintance with religions. Towards the end of my second year in England, I came across two theosophists, brothers and both unmarried. They talked to me about Gita. They were reading Sir Edwin Arnold's translation, The Song Celestial, and they invited me to read the original with them. I felt ashamed as I had read the divine poem neither in Sanskrit or in Gujarati. I was constrained to tell them that I had not read the Gita, but I would gladly read it with them, and that though my knowledge of Sanskrit was meager, I hope to understand the original to the extent of telling them where the translation failed to bring out the meaning. I began reading the Gita with them. The verses in the second chapter ponders on objects of sense. If one ponders on objects of sense, that brings attraction. From attraction grows desire. Desire flames to fierce passion. Passion breeds recklessness. Then the memory all betrayed, let noble purpose go, and saps the mind till purpose, mind and man all are undone. This made an impression on my mind, and they still ring in my ears. The book stuck me as one of priceless worth. The impression has ever since been growing on me, with the result that I regard today as the book par excellence for knowledge of truth. It has afforded me invaluable help in my moments of gloom. I have read almost all the English translations of it, and I regard Sir Edwin Arnold's as the best. He has been faithful to the text, and yet it does not read like translation. Though I read Gita with these friends, I cannot pretend to have studied it then. It was only after some years that it became a book of daily reading. The brothers also recommended The Light of Asia by Sir Edwin Arnold, whom I knew till then as an author only of songs celestial, and I began reading it with even greater interest than I did the Bhagavad Gita. Once I began it, I could not leave it off. They also took me on one occasion to the Blavatsky Lodge and introduced me to Madame Blavatsky and Mrs. Besant. The latter had then just joined the Theosophical Society, and I was following with great interest the controversy of her conversion. The friends advised me to join the society, but I politely declined, saying, with my meager knowledge of my own religion, I don't want to belong to any religious body. I recall having read at the brothers' instance Madame Blavatsky's Key to Theosophy. The book stimulated in me the desire to read books on Hinduism, and disabused me of the notion fostered by the missionaries of Hinduism that Hinduism was rife with superstition. About the same time, I met a good Christian from Manchester in a vegetarian boarding house. He talked to me about Christianity. I narrated to him my Rajkot recollections. He was pained to hear them. He said, I'm a vegetarian, I do not drink. Many Christians are meat eaters and drink. No doubt, but neither meat eating nor drinking is enjoined in the scripture. Please read the Bible. I accepted his advice, and he got me a copy. I have faint recollection that he himself used to sell copies of the Bible, and I purchased from him an edition containing maps, coordinates, and other aids. I began reading it, but I could not possibly read through the Old Testament. I read the book of Genesis, and the chapters that followed invariably sent me to sleep. But just for the sake of being able to say that I had read it, I plodded through other books with as much difficulty and with the least interest of understanding. I disliked reading the book of Numbers. But the New Testament produced a different impression, especially the Sermon on the Mount, which went straight to my heart. I compared it with the Gita. The verses, but I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak too. Delighted me beyond measure. It put me in the mind of Shamal Bhatt's, for a bowl of water give a godly meal, etc. My young mind tried to unify the teaching of Gita, the Light of Asia, and the Sermon on the Mount. That renunciation was the highest form of religion appealed to me greatly. This reading whetted my appetite for studying the lives of other religious teachers. A friend recommended Carlyle's Heroes in Hero Worship. I read the chapter on Hero as a prophet and learned of the prophet's greatness and bravery and austere living. Beyond this acquaintance with religion, I could not go at the moment, as reading for the examination left me scarcely any time for outside subjects. But I took a mental note of the fact that I should read more religious books and acquaint myself with all principal religions. And how could I help knowing something of atheism too? Every Indian knew Bradlaugh's name and his so-called atheism. I read some book about it, the name of which I forget. It had no effect on me, for I had already crossed the Sahara of atheism. Mrs. Besant was then very much in the limelight, had turned to theism from atheism, and that fact also strengthened my aversion to atheism. I have read her book, How I Became a Theosophist. It was about this time that Bradlaugh died. He was buried in the working cemetery. I attended the funeral, as I believe every Indian residing in London did. A few clergymen were also present to do him his last honors. On our way back from the funeral, we had to wait at the station for our train. A champion atheist from the crowd heckled one of the clergymen. Well, sir, you believe in the existence of God? I do, said the good man in a low tone. You also agree that the circumference of the earth is 28,000 miles, don't you? Said the atheist with a smile of self assurance. Indeed. Pray tell me what is the size of your God and where he may be. Well, if we all but knew, he resides in the hearts of us both. Now, don't take me to be a child, said the champion with a triumphant look. The clergyman assembled a humble silence. The talk still further increased my prejudice against atheism. Nirbal ke Balaram. Though I had acquired a nodding acquaintance with Hinduism and other religions of the world, I should have known that it would not be enough to save me in my trials. Of the thing that sustains him through trials, man has no inkling, much less knowledge at the time. If an unbeliever, he will attribute his safety to chance. If a believer, he will say God has saved him. He will conclude as well as he may that his religious study or spiritual discipline was at the back of the state of grace within him. But in the hour of his deliverance, he does not know whether his spiritual discipline or something else saves. Who that has prided himself on his spiritual strength has not seen it humbled to dust. A knowledge of religion, as distinguished from experience, seems but chaff in such moments of trial. It was in England that I first discovered the futility of mere religious knowledge. How I was saved on previous occasions is more than I can say for. I was very young then, but now I was 20 and had gained some experience as a husband and a father. During the last year, as far as I can remember of my stay in England, that is in 1890, there was a vegetarian conference at Portsmouth to which an Indian friend and I were invited. Portsmouth is a seaport with a large naval population. It has many houses with women of ill fame, women not actually prostitutes but at the same time not very scrupulous about their morals. We were put up in one of these houses, needless to say that the reception committee did not know anything about it. It would have been difficult in a town like Portsmouth to find out which were good lodgings and which were bad for occasional travellers like us. We returned from the conference in the evening. After dinner, we sat down to play a rubber of bridge, in which our landlady joined, as is customary in England, even in respectable households. Every player indulges in innocent jokes as a matter of course, but here my companion and our hostess began to make indecent ones as well. I did not know that my friend was adept in the art. It captured me and I also joined in. Just when I was about to go beyond the limit, leaving the cards and the game to themselves, God through the good companion uttered the blessed warnings. Whence this devil in you, my boy? Be off quick. I was ashamed. I took the warning and expressed within myself gratefulness to my friend. Remembering the vow that I had taken before my mother, I fled from the scene. To my room I went quaking, trembling, and with a beating heart, like a quarry escaped from the pursuer. I recall this as the first occasion on which a woman other than my wife moved me to lust. I passed the night sleeplessly, all kinds of thoughts assailing me. Should I leave this house? Should I run away from the place? Where was I? What would happen to me if I had not had my wits about me? I decided to act henceforth with great caution, not to leave the house, but somehow leave Portsmouth. The conference was not to go on for more than 2 days, and I remember I left Portsmouth the next evening, my companion staying there some time longer. I did not know then the essence of religion or of God and how He works in us. Only vaguely that I understood that God had saved me on that occasion. On all occasions of trial, He has saved me. I know the phrase God saved me has a deeper meaning for me today, and still I feel that I have not grasped its entire meaning. Only richer experience can help me to a fuller understanding. But in all my trials of a spiritual nature as a lawyer, in conducting institutions and in politics, I can say that God has saved me. With every hope is gone, when every hope is gone, when helpers fail and comforts flee, I find that help arrives somehow, from I know not where. Supplication, worship, prayer are no superstition. They are acts more real than the acts of eating, drinking, sitting, or walking. It is no exaggeration to say that they are alone that they alone are real. All else is unreal. Such worship of prayer is no flight of eloquence. It's no lip homage. It springs from the heart. If, therefore, we achieve that purity of heart when it is emptied of all love, if we keep all the chords in proper tune, they trembling music in the trembling passing music out of sight. Prayer needs no speech. It is in itself independent of any sensuous effort. I have not the slightest doubt that prayer is an unfailing means of cleansing the heart of passions, but it must be combined with the utmost humility. Narayan Hemchandra. About this time, Narayan Hemchandra came to England. I had heard of him as a writer. We met at the house of Miss Manning of the National Indian Association. Miss Manning knew that I could not make myself sociable. When I went to her place, I used to sit tongue-tied, never speaking except when spoken to. She introduced me to Narayan Hemchandra. He did not know English. His dress was queer, a clumsy pair of trousers, a wrinkled, dirty brown coat after the Parsi fashion, no necktie collar, and a tasseled wooden cap. He grew a long beard. He was lightly built and short of stature. His round face was scarred with a small pox and had a nose which was neither pointed nor blunt. With his hand, he was constantly turning over his beard. Such a queer looking and queerly dressed person was bound to be singled out in a fashionable society. I've heard a good deal about me, I said to him. I've also read some of your writings. I should be very pleased if you were kind enough to come to my place. Narayan Hemchandra had a rather hoarse voice. With a smile on his face, he replied, "Yes, where do you stay?" "In Stowe Street." "Then we are neighbors. I want to learn English. Will you teach me?" "I shall be happy to teach you anything I can, and will try my best. If you like, I will go to your place." "Oh no, I shall come to you. I shall also bring with me a translation exercise book." So we made an appointment. Soon we were close friends. Narayan Hemchandra was innocent of grammar. Horse was a verb with him and run a noun. I remember many such funny instances, but he was not to be baffled by his ignorance. My little knowledge of grammar could make no impression on him. Certainly he never regarded his innocence of grammar as a matter of shame. With perfect nonchalance he said, "I have never been to school like you. I have never felt the need for grammar in expressing my thoughts. Well, do you know Bengali? I know it. I have travelled in Bengal. It is I who have given Maharishi Devendranath Tagore's works to the Gujarati speaking world, and I wish to translate into Gujarati the treasures of many other languages. I always content myself with bringing out the spirit. Others with a better knowledge may be able to do more in the future, but I am quite satisfied with what I have achieved without the help of grammar. I know Marathi, Hindi, Bengali, and now I have begun to know English. What I want is a copious vocabulary. And do you think my ambition ends here? No fear. I want to go to France and learn French. I am also told that language has an extensive literature. I shall go to Germany also, if possible. Then there, there learn German, and thus he would talk on unceasingly. He had a boundless imagination, ambition for learning languages and for foreign travel. Then will you go to America also? Certainly. How can I return to India without having seen the new world? But where will you find the money? Why do I need money for? I am not a fashionable fellow like you. The minimum amount of food and the minimum amount of clothing suffice for me. And for this, what little I get from my books and from my friends is enough. I will always travel third class. While going to America also, I shall travel on deck. Narayan Hemchandra's simplicity was all his own, and his frankness was on par with it. Of pride he had not the singlest trace, excepting, of course, a rather undue regard for his own capacity as a writer. We met daily. There was considerable amount of similarity between our thoughts and actions. Both of us were vegetarians. We would often have our lunch together. There was a time when I lived on 17s a week and cooked for myself. Sometimes when I'd go to his room and sometimes he would come over to mine. I cooked in the English style. Nothing but Indian style would satisfy him. He would not do without dal. I would make a soup of carrots, etc., and he would pity me for my taste. He somehow hunted out moong, cooked it, and brought to my place. I ate it with delight. This led on a regular system of exchange between us. I would take my delicacies to him and he would bring his to mine. Cardinal Manning's name was there on every lip. The dock labourers' strike had come to an early extermination owing to the efforts of John Burns and Cardinal Manning. I told Narayan Himchandra of Disraeli's tribute to the Cardinal's simplicity. Then I must see the stage, said he. He's a big man, what do you expect to see him? Why? I know now, I know how. I must get you to write to him in my name. Tell him that I am an author and I want to congratulate him personally on his humanitarian work. And also say that I have taken you as an interpreter as I do not know English. I wrote a letter to that effect. In 2 or 3 days came Cardinal Manning's card in reply, giving us the appointment. So we both called on the Cardinal. I put on the usual visiting suit. Narayan Hemchandra was the same as ever, in the same coat and the same trousers. I tried to make fun of this, but he laughed me out and said, "You civilized fellows are all cowards. Great men may never look at a person's exterior, they think of his heart." We entered the Cardinal's mansion. As soon as we were seated, a thin, tall, old gentleman made his appearance and then shook hands with us. Narayan Hemchandra thus gave his greetings. I do not want to take up your time. I've heard a lot about you and I felt I should come and thank you for the good work you've done for the strikers. It has been my custom to visit the sages of the world and that is why I have put you to this trouble. This was of course my translation of what he spoke in Gujarati. I am glad you have come. I hope your stay in London will agree with you and that you will get in touch with people here. God bless you. With these words, the Cardinal stood up and said goodbye. Once Narayan Hemchandra came to my place in a shirt and dhoti. The good landlady opened the door and came running to me in fright. This was a new landlady who did not know that Narayan Hemchandra and said, "A sort of a madcap wants to see you." I went to the door and to my surprise found Narayan Hemchandra. I was shocked. His face, however, showed nothing but his usual smile. "But did not the children in the street drag you?" "Well, they ran after me, but I did not mind them and they were quiet." Narayan Hemchandra went to Paris after a few months' stay in London. He began studying French and also translating French books. I knew enough French to revise his translations, so he gave it to me to read. It was not a translation, it was a substance. Finally, he carried out his determination to visit America. It was with great difficulty that he succeeded in securing a deck ticket. While in the United States, he was prosecuted for being indecently dressed, as once he went out in a shirt and dhoti. I have a recollection that he was discharged. The Great Exhibition. There was a great exhibition at Paris in 1890. I had read about its elaborate preparations and I had also had a keen desire to see Paris. So I thought I had better combine these things into two and go there at this juncture. Of particular attraction of the exhibition was the Eiffel Tower, constructed entirely of iron and nearly 1,000 feet tall. There were of course many other things of interest, but the tower was the chief one, inasmuch it had been supposed till then that a structure of that height could never safely stand. I had heard of a vegetarian restaurant in Paris. I engaged a room there and stayed 7 days. I managed everything economically, both the journey to Paris and sightseeing there. This I did mostly on foot and with the help of a map of Paris, and also a map of and guide to the exhibition. These were enough to direct one of the main streets and chief place of interest. I remember nothing of the exhibition except its magnitude and variety. I have fair recollection of the Eiffel Tower as I ascended it twice or thrice. There was a restaurant on the first platform, and just for the satisfaction of being able to say that I had lunch at a great height, I threw away 7 shillings on it. The ancient churches of Paris are still in my memory. Their grandeur and their peacefulness are unforgettable. The wonderful construction of Notre Dame and the elaborate decoration of the interior with its beautiful sculptures cannot be forgotten. I felt that those who expended millions on such divine cathedrals could not have but the love of God in their hearts. I have read a lot about the fashions and frivolity of Paris. These were in evidence in every street, but the churches stood noticeably apart from these scenes. A man would forget the outside noise and bustle as soon as he entered one of these churches. His manner would change. He would behave with dignity and the reverence as he passed someone kneeling before the image of the Virgin. The feeling I had then has since been growing on me. With all this kneeling and prayer could not be mere superstition. The devout souls kneeling before the Virgin could not be worshipping every mere marble. They were fired with genuine devotion and they worshipped not stone but the divinity of which it was symbolic. I have an impression that I felt given I have an impression that I felt then that by this worship they were not detracting from but increasing the glory of God. I must say a word about the Eiffel Tower. I do not know what purpose it serves today, but I've heard that it is greatly disparaged as well as praised. I remember that Tolstoy was chief among those who disparaged it. He said that the Eiffel Tower was a moment of man's folly, not of his wisdom. Tobacco, he argued, was the worst of all intoxicants, inasmuch as man was addicted to it, was tempted to commit crimes which a drunkard never dared to do. Liquor made a man mad, but tobacco clouded his intellect and made him build castles in the air. The Eiffel Tower was one of the creations of man under such influence. There was no art about the Eiffel Tower. In no way can it be said to have contributed to the real beauty of the exhibition. Men flocked to see it and ascended it as it was a novelty and of unique dimensions. It was a toy of exhibition. As long as we are the children, we are attracted by toys. And the tower was a good demonstration of the fact that we are all children attracted by trinkets. This may be claimed by the purpose served by the Eiffel Tower. Called but then. I have deferred saying anything up to now about the purpose for which I went to England, which is being called to the bar. It is time to advert to it briefly. There were two conditions which had to be fulfilled before a student was formally called to the bar. Keeping terms, 12 months equivalent to 3 years, and passing examination. Keeping terms meant eating one's terms, which is attending at least 6 out of the 24 dinners in a term. Eating did not mean actually partaking of dinner, it meant reporting oneself at fixed hours and being present throughout dinner. Usually, of course, one ate and drank the good commons and choice wines provided. A dinner cost from 2 to 6 and from 2 and 6 to 3 and 6. That is from 2 to 3 rupees. That was considered moderate inasmuch as one had to pay the same amount for wines alone if one dined at a hotel. For us in India, it was a matter of surprise if we are not civilized that the cost of drink should exceed the cost of food. The first revelation gave me a great shock and I wondered how people had the heart to throw away so much money on drink. Later I came to understand I often ate nothing at these dinners for the things that I might eat were only bread, boiled potato and cabbage. In the beginning I did not eat these as I did not like them and later when I began to relish them, I also gained the courage to ask for other dishes. The dinner provided for the benchers used to be better than that of the students. A Parsi student who was also a vegetarian and I applied in the interest of vegetarianism for the vegetarian courses which were served to the benchers. An application was granted and we began to get fruits and other vegetables from the benchers table. 2 bottles of wine were allowed to each group of 4 and I did not touch them. I was ever in demand to form a quarter so that 3 might empty 2 bottles. And then there was a grand night in each term where extra wines like champagne in addition to port and sherry were served. I was therefore specially requested to attend and was in great demand on that grand night. I could not see then nor have I seen since how these dinners qualified the students better for the bar. There was once a time when only few students used to attend these dinners and thus there were opportunities for talks between them and the benchers and the speeches were also made. These occasions helped to give them knowledge of the world with a sort of polish and refinement and also improved their power of speaking. No such thing was possible in my time as benchers had a table all to themselves. The institution had gradually lost its meaning but conservative England retained it nevertheless. The curriculum of study was easy, barristers were being humorously known as dinner barristers. Everyone knew that the examination had practically no value. In my time, there were 2, one in Roman law and one in common law. These were regular textbooks prescribed. There were regular textbooks prescribed for these examinations. which could be taken in compartments but scarcely anyone read them. I have known many to pass the Roman law examination by scrambling through notes on Roman law in a couple of weeks, and the common law examination by reading notes on the subject in 2 to 3 months. Question papers were easy and examiners were generous. A percentage of passes in the Roman law examination used to be 90 to 90, 95 to 99, and those in the final examination 75 or more. There was thus little fear of being plucked, and examinations were held not once but 4 times a year. They could not be felt as difficulty. But I succeeded in turning them into one. I felt that I should read all the textbooks. It was a fraud, I thought, not to read these books. I invested much money in them. I decided to learn Roman law Latin. The Latin which I had acquired in London matriculation stood me in good stead, and all this reading was not without its value later on in South Africa, where Roman Dutch is the common law. The reading of Justinian therefore helped me a great deal in understanding South African law. It took me 9 months of fairly hard labor to read through common law for England. For Broom's Common Law, a big but interesting volume, took up a great deal of time. Snell's Equity was full of interest but a bit hard to understand. Wide and Trudeau's leading cases, from which certain cases were prescribed, was full of interest and instruction. I read also with interest William and Edward Reel's Property and Goody's Personal Property. William's book read like a novel. The one book I remember to have read on my return to India with the same unflagging interest was Main's Hindu Law, but it is out of place to talk here of Indian books. I passed my examination, was called on the bar on 10th of June 1891, and was enrolled in the High Court on 11th. On 12th, I sailed for home. But notwithstanding my study, there was no end to my helplessness and fear. I did not feel myself qualified to practice law, but a separate chapter is needed to describe this helplessness of mine. Okay. With this, we will take a break for this session. It's been a okay chapter, and what do we have to unpack here? It starts about Gandhi's confidence, his building of confidence. He obviously is an extremely shy person, and he made an acquaintance with an older lady who used to call him for lunches on Sundays, and he used to go to her house for lunches. And Gandhi found that many Indians in England did not confess to the fact that they were already married, because for two reasons. One, it lost them the opportunity of getting to know women and having a good time. Two, they were also embarrassed or ashamed of the fact, because they were young boys, and many of them had married and already had kids. So the fact that they were not very proud of their child marriage act. But Gandhi realized that over a period of time he also was becoming like that, and on this particular occasion, the lady who used to call him on every Sunday, she was not personally interested in him, but she would introduce him to younger ladies. And there was a young lady who got along very well with Gandhi, who used to the practice there was the daughters of young landladies used to take the guests out, and in this case the young lady took him to a nearby hill. They went trekking, and she was strong, and she went up the hill, and she came down, and she made fun of him for the fact that he could not keep up with her. Gandhi was a long walker and had a fairly strong constitution, but he still could not keep up with her, and basically he built up a good friendship. As things proceeded, Gandhi started feeling guilty about the fact that he had not confessed that he was married and had a boy, and he does, like all the earlier chapters he's mentioned, when he's not able to express himself, Gandhi goes to write letters, and he wrote a fairly well drafted letter, which he later claimed that he had drafted and redrafted multiple times. But the letter is very well written, where he talks, where he tells the lady that possibly you might have thought that I am a bachelor, and therefore you have introduced this lovely lady to me, and I would like to confess that I am married and I have a boy. I am not very proud of the fact that I hid this from you, but please note that I never did nothing to cross my limit. should you not continue to invite me for lunches, I can understand and I will not hold it against you. But if you continue to invite me, please know that I would consider this as a act of forgiveness, and I would continue to be um, as happy as before to come to your house. For which he got an immediate reply saying that uh, we had a good laugh reading a letter. Please realize that we have you have nothing to be ashamed of, and whatever you've done is pardonable. Please do come over to our house regularly. We would like to know more about your child marriage and would like to have humor at your expense. So that's how it ends, and things carry on. There's another incident where he mentions where they had to attend a conference of vegetarians at Portsmouth. Portsmouth had a reputation which was not so good about the ladies there. The ladies were not so much as prostitutes, but uh, uh, they were quite liberal, and so uh, so Gandhi and his friend attend their conference and get back to the room, and they start playing a game of bridge. The landlady also joins them, and she's quite loose in her talk and crosses the boundary of decency. His friend, Gandhi's friend, is also adept in the art. Gandhi also joins in, and suddenly he has this moment of conscience hitting him, and he's thankful to God. He feels that it's an act of God, and he walks back to his room and he sits in his room. He's trembling, quaking, and he again attributes it to more to God and an external force rather than to his own ability to control himself. After which he talks a lot about the Theosophical Society, the society of people who believed in religion. He talks about his association, or rather meeting Madame Blavatsky, uh, uh, Mrs. Besant, who's Annie Besant, quite popular in India, one of the strong founding members of the Indian Theosophical Society. The whole context of this is that a couple of his friends ask him to call him for a reading of the song Celestial, which is the translation in English of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, Gandhi is a little embarrassed for the fact that he has not read the Bhagavad Gita properly, either in Gujarati or in Sanskrit, but he feels confident that he would be able to at least guide his friends on whether the Sanskrit translation to English captures the right essence or not. As he is reading the book, he kind of explores other books written by the author, and he gets more and more involved in other religions. Primarily, first he wants to build a strong base of his understanding of his religion. When he's called to join the Theosophical Society, he refuses, politely declines, saying that he does not have a understanding of his religion itself properly to be part of it. Gradually, he starts getting an understanding of Hinduism by reading multiple books. There is also mention about the time that he spent in Paris. So he in 1890 there was the expo which happened in Paris, for which the Parisian government had built the Eiffel Tower. So Gandhi spent about 7 days during that period. He not only describes the Eiffel Tower in detail, but also says about the arguments of people who like and dislike the Eiffel Tower. Uh, but yeah, a lot of uh, he's has spoken a lot about the churches in Paris, Notre Dame, and the fact that he feels that the kneeling and the praying and the confessing in churches cannot be mere superstition, and that there is a sense of divine in all the marble sculptures, or it is there in the minds of the people who do the supplication and prayer in these places. Um, so that's about his experience in Paris, and uh, Then he goes on to talk about his friend Narayan Hemchandra. So he's introduced to this gentleman Narayan Hemchandra, who's an author from India, who is, uh, uh, is very ambitious about his own writing and about his wanting to gain experiences. So he comes to England. Gandhi is introduced to him. Gandhi gets close to him because they share some principles together. Both are vegetarians, both come from the same place. Uh, Gandhi looks down upon him because he doesn't dress very fashionably as the British do. But Narayan Hemchandra does not see a point in dressing well. He is a man of intellect, and he is somebody who does not know English properly. He has no concept of grammar, which again Gandhi finds funny. Narayan Hemchandra again does not see this um, as a disadvantage. In fact, he's not even ashamed of it. He talks about his experiences. He says that he's traveled a lot in Bengal, speaking Bengali. He's translated the works of Devendranath Tagore into Gujarati. He has a good knowledge of Marathi, Gujarati, Bengali, and now a working knowledge of English, or rather, he's acquiring a knowledge of English. He intends to go to France, learn French, and maybe possibly Germany also. Gandhi asked him if he would be interested in going to the United States. He says, why not? I would not want to go back to India without seeing the new world. So Gandhi sees him as an ambitious guy. He meets him every day. He tries to teach him English. And Narayan Hemchandra, on his part, is interested in meeting a lot of people. He in fact seeks an appointment. Seeks the help of Gandhi in taking an appointment from a famous author in England. Um, uh, so Gandhi writes a letter saying that here is a big author from India who wants to meet you, and I would be the translator. In a couple of days, he gets a reply saying that you could come over, and Gandhi is very pleased to see that this arrangement has worked. Narayan Hemchandra doesn't dress up for the occasion. He is quite laid back. He meets him as an equal, and says that I'm happy to meet you, and Gandhi does the translation. So it's a very good meeting. So these are the experiences that Gandhi is getting in England. While he is a naturally shy guy, he has a fairly large company of friends. He attends the funeral of another very popular figure in England, which he feels that most Indians in England would have attended the funeral of. So while he admits of being shy, he has a fairly large group of eclectic people, people interested in religion, people interested in vegetarianism, people interested in Hindu scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, and so on and so forth. So it's a good eclectic mix of people. People like Narayan Hemchandra, he gets to know them very well, and yeah. So yeah, the gentleman that they go to meet, his name is Cardinal Manning, and so that's another experience that he gets very well. And so this is all about Gandhi and his experience at Paris, his experience with people, his experience in breaking his shyness, and he. Before I conclude the last part of it, he talks about the bar examination in England. So one of the important factors of calling to the bar is, or being selected to the bar, there are two laws that you need to study. One is the Roman law, and then there is I don't know what is common law, something like that. So Gandhi finds both of them, yeah, common law examination. Gandhi finds both of them to be quite easy. He feels that at least at that point of time it was not very difficult, but he took the effort of learning the Roman law in Latin, which later helped him in his experience as a lawyer in South Africa. The pass percentages were 95 to 99 percentage, and for the common law it was 75 and above. So it was not very difficult to pass, and Gandhi put that extra effort. He put 9 months of toil for the examination. Plus having all his other interests, reading a lot of literature, making a lot of friends, creating a vegetarian society. So Gandhi kind of lived a very eclectic life, in England. He also traveled to France, understood French culture, French language, visited their churches. So he was gradually evolving as a man of the world. For somebody who comes from a very uh, closed Gujarati conservative environment, he managed to break out of the shackles of not just going to study law in England, but also experiencing different things, learning different things in the uh, in Europe, rather not just in England, but now breaking out of England more. Narayan Hemchandra eventually does whatever he had decided. He goes to France and learns French. He translates some of the French books to Gujarati. He eventually goes to United States. Now, as a person, he's very relaxed and does not care too much about dresses. He wears a shirt and a dhoti, and for which he gets arrested in United States for being indecently dressed. Of course, as Gandhiji later describes, he was discharged. Right? So this is where I would like to end my analysis of whatever I've read. This is very interesting read, and I hope that you guys also enjoyed it. I will see you all again in the next video on the story of my experiments with truth by Gandhi. I will see you all. Take care. Good night.